Do you feel like the world is getting closer to a global war? Or do you think life in 2026 isn't exciting enough yet? Either way, the weekend morning of February 28 gave the whole world a massive surprise thanks to the US-Israel coalition. It was a working Saturday in Iran. At 9:45 a.m., people in the capital, Tehran, were getting ready to start their day. Suddenly, the sky was filled with thunder, codenamed Epic Fury and Genesis. This was no small skirmish. The United States and Israel had joined forces to strike directly at the head of Iran. Today's video isn't just about missiles. We're talking about conspiracies stacked thicker than a burger. Why now? Is it really about the US midterm elections, or is it about oil? Most importantly, could this fire eventually spread to the Taiwan Strait and Beijing's table? To understand this airstrike, we first need to look at the love-hate relationship between the United States and Iran. Their relations have been frozen for 47 years. Since the 1979 hostage crisis, mutual distrust has lasted nearly half a century. But why strike this year? The official US explanation is that Iran's nuclear facilities were about to move underground. If they waited any longer, US bunker buster bombs would only hit rocks. Adding to this, Iran saw its largest wave of domestic protests at the end of 2025, causing the regime's legitimacy to plummet. Washington saw now as the perfect moment to topple the dominoes. The operation's precision was almost magical. The US-Israel coalition targeted Supreme Leader Khamenei's residence in Tehran's Pasteur district. Satellite images showed the building turn to ashes under 7 missiles, confirming Khamenei's death. Trump even proudly announced on social media that 48 senior Iranian leaders were taken out in one sweep. Iran's regime is not just headless. Almost all its top figures are gone. Those still publicly visible had already perished under the precise firepower of the US military. War costs money, and it almost always costs lives. Is the US really that altruistic, trying to give 100 million Iranians a free and democratic society? Uncle Sam isn't that kind. Deploying aircraft carriers, fighter jets, and missiles is hardly a simple democracy delivery. One conspiracy theory going around is that Trump launched the strike to boost his midterm election prospects. After taking office, his social media posts practically laid out the script. He kept insisting Iran interfered in the 2020 and 2024 elections. This airstrike was delayed justice, but Democratic legal experts warned this is basically an upgraded boy who cried wolf. Online, a draft executive order from April 2025 circulated, showing that the White House planned to use a national emergency as an excuse to intervene in the 2026 midterms. Measures included banning mail-in ballots without reason to prevent Iranian hackers from tampering, prohibiting electronic voting machines, and even allowing federal intervention in local election procedures. Trump's focus has always been consolidating power, ensuring Congress wouldn't oppose him. Being a wartime president helps him with elections. The wartime president tactic has obvious benefits. While only 27% of Americans support the strike, Trump's support among the Republican base surged. This is classic redirect the battlefield strategy. When things are chaotic at home, pick an external enemy to unite everyone under your banner. Beyond politics, another major concern is black gold vital oil resources. Trump's strike on Iran mirrors his approach to Venezuela a month earlier. In January 2026, under Operation Absolute Decision, US forces captured Maduro and brought him to New York for trial. Venezuela immediately began oil privatization reforms. Trump proudly said in interviews, "We executed Venezuela perfectly. It was a textbook operation." His logic is simple: precisely remove anti-US leadership, preserve existing bureaucracies, and open oil extraction to US giants in exchange for lifting sanctions. Iran had a similar system with Venezuela, exporting oil to China via shadow fleets and secret contracts to earn foreign currency to support the regime. This strike wasn't just about taking Iranian lives. It was about dismantling an anti-US energy alliance. Don't underestimate Iran. It's the 4th largest oil producer in OPEC, with the 4th largest proven oil reserves. If Iran followed Venezuela's model, the US would control both Venezuela, 2nd, and Iran, 4th, effectively regaining global energy supply lines. If you think this is just a regional Middle East conflict, think again. The real audience is Beijing. Who is Iran's biggest oil buyer? China. About 90% of Iran's maritime oil exports go to China. China's Shandong teapot refineries rely on cheap Iranian oil to keep manufacturing costs low. Now, with the US strike, cheap Iranian oil disappears, and China's energy costs soar. This explains why China had consistently advocated for Iran in negotiations. They're pursuing self-interest under the guise of peace. The more advanced strategy is dual-front prevention. U.S. war games show the Pentagon's worst fear. If Taiwan sees a crisis in 2026 and Iran simultaneously flares up in the Middle East, U.S. precision munitions could be exhausted within a week. Beijing's calculation: if they invade Taiwan, Iran could help tie down the U.S. Trump's tactic is eliminate threats first. Before the Taiwan Strait reaches a tipping point, he neutralized Iran's flank, destroying its ballistic missile and naval capabilities. This ensures that if Taiwan faces a crisis, U.S. carriers can move into the Pacific without worrying about the Persian Gulf or a sneak Iranian attack. Unexpectedly, a Middle Eastern war also ties into Taiwan's security. In plain terms, Iran is China's proxy in the Middle East to distract and exhaust the U.S. After this world-shocking strike, all eyes are on Trump's visit to China from March 31 to April 2. Previously, he went to Beijing with a shopping list. This time, he might bring the newly neutralized Iran as leverage. The deterrence factor is terrifying. He demonstrates to Xi Jinping that the U.S. has the ability and willingness to carry out regime change unilaterally, bypassing the UN and bureaucratic hurdles. At the summit, Trump could propose a high-stakes exchange. The U.S. guarantees global energy price stability, possibly sharing some Venezuelan oil with China if Beijing concedes on Taiwan or completely yields on tech exports. For Beijing, this is a dilemma: support Iran and risk direct conflict, or accept reality and see its Middle East hub collapse, while possibly making concessions on Taiwan. The April meeting will be a clash between the two most powerful nations of the 21st century, setting the stage for the next wave of global shifts. On a purely military level, the U.S.-Israel coalition won. Khamenei is dead, 48 top officials are gone, and Iran is in a constitutional black hole. According to Article 111 of the Iranian Constitution, the supreme leader's death requires a council to take over, but most members were killed in the strike. Tehran can't even find someone legally able to sign documents. On a larger scale, while opposition forces in Iran prepare to step in, remnants of the Revolutionary Guard remain, and proxy groups like the Resistance Army are launching retaliatory attacks. U.S. bases in Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain have already been targeted by missiles. The road to regime change is long. For U.S.-China-Taiwan relations, this is a double-edged sword. If the U.S. quickly stabilizes Iran and redeploys forces to the Pacific, Taiwan's security improves. But if Iran turns into another Iraq quagmire, the U.S. gets stuck in prolonged civil war and chaos, opening what Beijing might see as the perfect window to attack Taiwan. The 2026 U.S.-Iran war isn't just a military operation. It's Trump-style diplomacy at its extreme, mixing electoral strategy, energy interests, and great power competition into a single explosive package. One lesson: in 2026, all international rules are shredded. Great power competition is no longer chess, it's flipping the table. World order is being reshaped in the smoke of Tehran, and we might already be teetering on the edge of a global war. Today, that's all for the discussion. How do you think Trump's gamble will end? Will this war become Taiwan's shield or its curse? Share your thoughts, and see you next time.